Hello, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Hello, artistry enthusiasts and visual culture aficionados. It's me again, Miss M, and I'm back with yet another video. I've been doing a bunch of them lately. Lately, in the last two. Today's the third day. I think I've been making videos in a row. So, my last video was the Full Metal Jacket overview of an upcoming series, and then the one before that was Where the Snow Comes From, at the Overlook Hotel. You know what? I didn't even know whether or not I was serious about the source of the snow, but the more I think about it, and I was talking to Tancred about it, I made this video thinking I was crazy. And I said, but you know what? Let me make it anyway. Why not? It's my channel. Let me be crazy. I can do that. All right. As long as I don't hurt anybody. But like talking to Tancred, I'm more and more convinced that my crazy idea just might be, how do they say? How do they say it? It might just be crazy enough to work, or crazy enough to be true. You never know in this crazy world that we live in, what's going on. And here at the Overlook Hotel, Tancred is working on something, and I won't talk about. I'm not 100% sure what you're working on, Tancred. I know it has to do with a room, and y'all keep an eye on Tancred's channel. Go over there and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can see his stuff like the second it comes out. And because he does good work, he really does amazing work. He's my, I guess, research buddy, right? And we bounce ideas off of each other, and he's got some very good ones. He's the one who told me, maybe that's what's going on with the Overlook. Maybe I won't say, excuse me, sorry. I won't say it yet because I don't know if he's still got it cooking, in the crock pot. He's making a video. So I'll let him say what he has to say. And then maybe I'll add my 2 cents. I don't know. But, so here we are. And the fellas on Slack, pointed me in the direction of this marvelous article from this website. It's called At Home with the Kubricks. Stanley was, oh no, that's not it. Lord, what's wrong with me? This one from Flashback. Everything old is new again. This is the one the fellas pointed me to. This one I found on my own. After this, they showed me this one, and I was inspired by it. Just a Daughter and Her Father, photographs of Vivian Kubrick's life with Stanley. Vivian started her career as a filmmaker directing a documentary on her father, making The Shining in 1979. She scored her father's next film, Full Metal Jacket, in 1987. Kubrick then asked Vivian to score Eyes Wide Shut. She said no. Okay, we don't need to get into all of that. I was here just for the pictures. Okay, there's some beautiful pictures. And this is her working on the FMJ documentary. So it's the 80s, right? And there's a bunch of them. I'm gonna leave this in the comments, not comments, in the description. And you guys can look at it at your leisure. Okay, they are so cute. Look at her with the little monkey. Oh my God, so freaking cute. So freaking cute, the little baby monkey. And then there he is again. I think he's from the Space Odyssey movie. Okay. Oh, and all this stuff. And this is from, obviously, Clockwork Orange. And, there's some stuff going on in these photos. Oh, look, a typewriter. Is this an Adler? Looks like it is. Thank you guys from Slack for pointing me in this direction. This is a marvelous collection of photos. And I was just saying in this video last night, the Full Metal Jacket video, the announcement, the overview, not the announcement. Announcement was 8 months ago. Last night was the overview, that he must have been an awesome father And it looks like he was. It looks like he absolutely was an awesome dad. And oh, this is darling, just darling. Anyway, so check these out. They're good. They're good. They're good. They're heartwarming photographs. And I think, thank you guys so much for this. And thank you for showing me this, because it inspired me to get on the Google, where I ended up finding this article. And that's what I'm going to do this video about today. I'm going to read this to you. So y'all, get ready. If it's your bedtime, get your hot cocoa or whatever you drink before you go to bed, and maybe some cookies, and just get comfortable, because I'll read this to you. I'm making this video like after midnight. Again, my days have been la vida loca lately. And no, I haven't started learning Spanish yet, Gershom. I'm fitna. I'm preparing to do that. Hopefully this summer I'll take my first Spanish class, and I'll at least learn my letters and my numbers and the days of the weeks and the months of the year and the colors and how to tell time and stuff like that. And ask the important questions like, where's the bathroom? Or, in Spanish. But before I get into this article, okay, thank you all for your comments on last night's video. Loved it. Thank you all for all the comments and all the views on this video. And this one, this is 644 views on this one from the missing scene. Oh, I mean that. I'm just overjoyed. So, returning viewers, thank you for returning. New viewers, thank you for being new. And subscribers, wonderful subscribers, thank you for subscribing. Bring your friends, have them subscribe too. And, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share these crazy videos of mine. If you'd like to, just put them up wherever you feel like putting them up. I know I'm not the best video maker ever, but I'm not ashamed of what I'm doing. I do say some dumb stuff every now and again, and so what? Go ahead and put the video wherever you put videos. If you do that, I'm fine with it. And that's that. Yes, like, comment, subscribe, share, comment. Yeah, comment especially. I love the comments. You guys have some pretty interesting ideas. I love all the different perspectives that I see with the comments section under my videos. Love it, love it, love it. I'm gonna click over to community tab. I really need to do something more. I haven't been active on Twitter. I haven't been active on Instagram. I don't have a TikTok. I don't use Facebook or whatever it's called now. I just don't. My blog, oh, that's a joke. I'm just waiting for that thing to die so I can start all over again. This it says blog up here. Go ahead and click on it if you want, but I don't know if it's worth it. I want a nice blog. I want one where I can have people sign up for a newsletter if they want to do that, or just updates. Sign up to get for their email to get updates, where I can post links to all my videos and articles and other videos that I like, and maybe even promote other people's art and whatever. I would love to do that, but the current one that I have, I'm not going to badmouth the company, but I'm disappointed. It was a waste. I didn't spend a lot of money. I did spend some money, but it was a waste of money. So anyway, that's why I use my community tab here. It kind of functions as my little blog or whatever. This week, we're still doing the books that I found on archive. This one is called Stanley Kubrick Directs I think this is by Alexander Walker. Okay, so interesting. My latest song, rather, from the art history playlist is Tomahawk War Song. Y'all know I like Mike Patton. I really like Mike Patton. Even when he's not singing actual words, I think he's great. I put up Idiotech because, it was to prepare for this, where is the damn thing? The FMJ video. Okay, y'all seem to like this, the Encyclopedia of Stanley Kubrick from the Great Filmmakers series. This is all free. This is all on archive. And one of the commenters, I think under this one, said, thank you for putting this up, because now I liked it so much that I'm going to actually go and buy a copy of the book. That's awesome. I'm so, so glad. If you're listening, if you're watching this video, I'm so glad that I've inspired you to buy a book. Books are wonderful things. We need more of them. And we need more free access to books and information. That's the key. Not like this. Taschen, no shade to Taschen, but that $1,500 for a book, or like a little, sort of collection of books. Could they at least do like a cheaper version for people like me? I can maybe afford $100, and I would spend that just to have access to that information and be able to see it or look at it or read it or whatever. But no, $1,500. Let me not. I'll just start crying. I'll just start crying. But anyway, you guys, I did my church announcements and the whole thing. So I'm going to read this article. So get cozy, get cuddly with your blankets and what have you. And your earbuds or whatever you use. So here we go, right? This one is from this website is called BFI. I don't know what BFI stands for. BFI Film Forever. Okay, Film Forever. And it's called, the article was published in 2019, so pretty recently, right? And At Home with the Kubricks is what it says. And it says, there's a quote. I think this is from Christiane. She says, Stanley was amazingly tolerant in taking the most extraordinary abuse, right? And this is this interview with his widow, Christiane, and his two daughters, Anya and Katerina. They talk about their father, and in Christiane's case, her husband, as a person, as a one, and I just kind of instinctually knew that he was probably a wonderful person, right? Never met him, but somebody who creates art like this, such thoughtful, beautiful art, the way that Stanley Kubrick did. I know people say, "Oh, artists are all crazy." No, they're not. No, they're not. They're some of the sanest, most balanced people. Some of them are, and people make up crazy stories, as they've been making up about Stanley Kubrick. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to share this article with you all. Because you know who? The snowman. Okay. I think you know who I'm talking about if you've been following me. He's been saying the craziest fucking things about Stanley. Before his death and since his death, like the fact that the poor man died in 1999, that didn't stop him. I'll just say his damn name, Stephen King. It's just the craziest fucking things he says about Stanley Kubrick. That, and again, me and Tankard were talking about this, that probably are not true. I mean, I doubt it. I doubt all of his stories about Stanley just being not a nice person or whatever. No, I don't believe that, man. I don't trust him farther than I could throw him. Not even, I'm talking about Stephen King. Don't trust Stephen King farther than I could throw him. So, I wanted to read this to you, so we can get kind of an idea of what he was like, as a person. Because he was a public figure, yeah, he was. Very famous, very influential artist, a film director. But he just seems to be like a nice person, just a nice ordinary person. So here we are. And here's the part under the title. So what was Stanley Kubrick really like? 3 of the people closest to him, his wife Christiane and daughters Anya and Katerina, set the record straight about the difference between the man and the mythology in this extended conversation with Nick James from our September 1999 issue. Okay. So this, it was published on this website November 2019, but the interview was originally done in September 1999, and I think that's approximately 6 months after Stanley Kubrick's death. Okay. Interesting. And here's a Katerina Kubrick quote here. When you hold a mirror to society, it rebels. Interesting. And then they've got some cute pictures here of the girls when they were babies and what have you. Very, very cute. Um, anyway, let me just start reading. Um, if you've read any accounts of a trip to the home of the late Stanley Kubrick, you will know that tone usually adopted by the writer is a mixture of trepidation, excitement, and paranoia. As an introduction to meeting the supposed recluse of legend, it is deemed essential there should be a touch of Kafka about the descriptive build-up. Don't leave out the sleeping policeman or the series of electronic gates. Okay. Arriving under more somber circumstances, invited just a few months after Kubrick's death to interview his wife Christiane and two of his three daughters, Anya and Katerina, I gained a contrary impression. The house, in brilliant sunshine, seemed a freewheeling sort of place, suddenly afflicted with sadness. In the Kubricks' company, sitting in a large, airy study room decorated at one end with Eyes Wide Shut poster artwork, open debate seemed the norm, though I was determined not to try to play chess with a ghost. The challenging spirit of enquiry Stanley Kubrick was known for seemed ever present. This made it a little easier for me to put many of the unpleasant things that have been said about Kubrick before his kith and kin. Christiane is a painter, as is Katerina. Examples of both their work are used as decoration in Eyes Wide Shut, who is married to film location manager Philip Hobbs and has three sons. Anya runs her own opera company, Palace Opera, is married to a conductor and opera singer, Jonathan Finney, and has one son. The Kubricks agreed to talk to Sight and Sound because it is a journal of record. Much of what has been said about Kubrick over the years and in the aftermath of his death has angered them. In particular, they believe that some of the literature on Kubrick, such as Stanley Kubrick, a biography by John Baxter, and Eyes Wide Open, a memoir of Stanley Kubrick by Frederick Raphael, gives a mistaken impression of him. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I want to read you this article. Like I said, Stephen King, they don't say it out loud. Not his wife and not his daughters. They don't say it out loud in this article or in the questions. I'm sorry, the answers they give to the questions in this article. But to me, it seems like possibly they're directing some of this towards maybe, if not Stephen King, then people like Stephen King, and I think he's included in that. Right? He said some ridiculous things about Stanley Kubrick. Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. And in my estimation, from what I've been learning, reading, researching, I think Stephen King's attacks got even worse after Stanley Kubrick exited this plane of existence in 1999. So, and there's little tidbits of information that are really, really interesting, especially for somebody like me and you all who are watching and listening, and people like Tankard. We're sort of we're trying to figure this out. So any little information, we're trying to figure out Kubrick's movies and his, whatever's going on in there. What is he really trying to say? What is he trying to teach his audience? In my opinion, I think he's trying to teach his audience and how he's trying to do that and whatever. So there's maybe some good information here. So Nick James is the interviewer here, and he asks, how was Stanley Kubrick as a father and family man? And Katerina says, he could easily have sent us off to boarding school, but instead we had tutors and goodness knows who else traveling with us. We had an incredibly interesting childhood, and he was interested in almost every aspect of our lives. He was a bit strict with his oldest daughter, me, about parties, but it was the 60s. I now have a 14-year-old boy who's scaring the life out of me, so not only do I understand why he was strict, although I resented it bitterly at the time, I also think he probably wasn't strict enough. It was obviously a very artistic milieu. This is interesting. I mean, when they say strict, I don't know what they mean. But obviously he was very, very careful about where he allowed his daughters to go, to socialize at parties and whatever. Sounds smart to me. There's all kinds of nutty people out there. Um, mm-hmm. Um, Interesting, right? Uh, Next question. How much was he involved in passing on his sense of culture to you? And now Anya answers, he's always worked at home as much as he could, and my mother, who is a painter, was also working at home. So there were basic visual and musical languages around. The result is we're all visually well trained. I bet they are. Each of us is a reasonable photographer, and even I can sort of draw. Now that was Anya's answer. Katerina's answer is, we saw an awful lot of movies. Probably more than most people because there were regular screenings. It was a great I was a great movie buff when I was at art college. Music, art, and film were the predominant themes of our lives. Interesting. Okay. Next question. How did he respond to your curiosity about his work? Anya says, we didn't need to be curious because it was always there. He was really happy for us to go on the set, though it would depend on what he was shooting. If we arrived at 3 a.m. and they were doing something deemed unsuitable for children, it would be an intrusion. But otherwise, I always felt I could go and see him. Katerina says he was very open. He would often ask us into his office when he was listening to a piece of music, and he'd say, what do you think? Do you like it by this conductor? And then he'd put on another conductor's version, and he would be interested in what we thought of the movies. Films like A Clockwork Orange we weren't allowed to see until we were of age. I didn't see Lolita until I was 16. So he was very correct in that way. We'd have movies at weekends. We saw every Elvis Presley and Cliff Richard movie, and then Mum and Dad and friends would watch something grown up. Occasionally I would sneak into the projection room and look through the window and be scared to death and run out again. That's interesting. And the next question is, how did he compare to other people's fathers? Anya says, he wasn't a remarkable father. He was a remarkable filmmaker. He was a very nice, good, rather Jewish father. Probably overprotective, but no more than so many. I'm sorry, probably overprotective, but no more so, no more so than many. He would always be there for us, and he was fantastic in a crisis. He could be impatient with you if he thought you weren't dealing with things properly, but if you fell, he was there. Even if he was in the middle of God knows what work schedule, if you phoned and said, I have to speak with you, I've really got a problem, he would do it. Katerina says he was a bottom line kind of guy. Between the two of them, my mother and father covered just about everything. There wasn't an emotional crisis or a career decision or a legal thing that was done alone. We would always sit down at the dinner table and hack things out. And then I guess the interviewer asks, a debate? Question mark. And Katerina says, absolutely. And what Daddy didn't know about female workings was not worth knowing. Okay, listen carefully, you guys. Absolutely, and what Daddy didn't know about female workings was not worth knowing. Yet people say he was a misogynist. And he didn't know about women. Another thing that really got me was when someone criticized the order in which Stanley ate his food. You know, sometimes when you get a lot of delicious food and you sample a bit before you begin, there was some guy on the television criticizing him for it. Christiane says Malcolm McDowell, actually. And Katerina says, I wasn't going to say that. And Christiane says, I don't care. Oh my, I like these people. I really like his daughters and his wife. They seem awesome. Katerina says, I was very upset about that because it's so small-minded and trivial. Anya says, it's very easy to make anybody's behavior sound odd. You take anyone doing anything out of context and it sounds peculiar. Now, you guys, Katerina says here, and Daddy, and a debate, okay, they debated about stuff and figured things out at the dinner table like a family, you know. And Katerina, and the interviewer asks, a debate, and Katerina says, absolutely. I don't know why she felt compelled to say this, because in this part before, I mean, they're asking them what kind of dad he was, and whatever, and then all of a sudden, after this a debate question, Katerina says, "Yet people say he was a misogynist." I wonder who she means. She doesn't say the name. She doesn't say the name, but she doesn't have to. Like, if you know, you know. And we know, those of us here, me and you all who are watching and listening, because I've been talking about that fool for a little while. I'm going to expose the living beans out of him. Okay? That awful man. I'm on a mission from God, y'all, like the Blues Brothers. Yeah, so Katerina says, yet people say he was a misogynist and he didn't know about women. Of course he didn't. He's a man. I think I know what Katerina's talking about. Just like instinctively as a woman, I know what she's talking about. Like, why would he, as a man, be concerned about any of that stuff? It's not, men don't need to know that stuff. That women keep to themselves, and what's part of a woman's life. That's not that. Just like women don't need to know guy stuff. It's just you do what you do. Don't do anything too stupid, and everything's gonna be fine, right? and that's that. And she makes a point of mentioning. She says people say he was a misogynist and he didn't know about women. And she's before that she says, and what Daddy didn't know about female workings was not worth knowing. And I don't think she doesn't say it, but I think it's implied, was not worth knowing by men. Men don't need to know about that stuff. That's our business, and that's ours to deal with. And we do it. Most women do it without, like, causing any trouble, right? And the misogynist thing that's directed at Stanley Kubrick by people, she says people. Let's just say his name. It's his awful name, Stephen King. He keeps... how many freaking... I bet... If you wanted to, or maybe I'll do it one time just out of curiosity if I have a little time and I think of it. Like, I'll go ahead and Google Stephen King, Stanley Kubrick, and misogynist or whatever. And I just wonder how many sources are going to pop up with that awful man, Stephen King, saying all this crap, complete, like, boiling shit about how Stanley Kubrick was a misogynist. I bet there would be so many hits of Stephen King bad-mouthing. Stephen King. I'm sorry, I get confused. Stephen King bad-mouthing Stanley Kubrick. Our Stanley. Like, really? I'm not going to do it now because I want to read you this article, but, like, obviously, and Kubrick himself, Stanley Kubrick himself, never, it seems to me, at least from my research and what I've been looking at, he never clapped back, at least not publicly, at Stephen King's nonsense. Because he didn't have to, like I said. He still has the last word. Yeah. Like 24 years after his death, he still has the last word. He's still exposing the living shit out of Stephen King. And Stephen King deserves every bit of it. So let's keep it going. So Christiane says Malcolm McDowell is the one who talked, crazy about the way Stanley Kubrick, like, eats his food or ate his food, in what order or whatever. Like, seriously? Don't these people have better things to... And obviously Malcolm McDowell said that in an interview or something, and or he thought he was putting Stanley Kubrick on blast or whatever. Like, really? Okay. Ridiculous. I didn't know Malcolm McDowell. Ooh, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. For those of you who don't know, Malcolm McDowell is the one who played Alex DeLarge in Clockwork Orange. And I'm like, him? He's the one who said that? And obviously, Christiane was annoyed by it, and so were the daughters, Katerina and Anya. And they weren't going to say, Katerina wasn't going to say his name, but Christiane is like, I don't care. Oh, interesting. And this is interesting to me. Like, mm. And Katerina says, I was very upset about that because it's so small-minded and trivial. Yeah. Again, if somebody said something like that about my father, I'd be like, really? You don't like the way he eats? Are you crazy? Like, why does that bother you? You know? But that's just me, and I think the ladies here feel the same way, you know? Next question. It's reckoned to be a hard thing for two creative artists to live together. What made it possible for you? And I think this question is directed at his wife, Christiane. And she says, we were suited in that I could paint at home and he could do most of the preparation and editing at home. The filming part would take relatively little time. I didn't know that. I did not know that the filming took relatively little time. No clue. And painters are sitting ducks for conversation. She's right, they are. They are painters, like a good painter, somebody who knows what they're doing with that brush and that canvas. Like they can paint and talk both at the same time and do that all day long. Kind of like a hairdresser. Like a hairdresser, you know, like or a barber. The most important job qualification of a hairdresser or a barber is can they hold a good conversation. It's not even about are they good at cutting hair or whatever. Like can they talk? Because that's the fun part of going to get your hair done, isn't it? But yeah, painters are sitting ducks for conversation. So I was a good sounding board. I could be found very easily. And then the interviewer asks, were you found often? Christiane says, it depends. Had he been alive and around now, when all this publicity and coverage are going on, we would have done this together. I've had death in the family, my parents. I had a mother with Alzheimer's, which is the ultimate catastrophe. And the interviewer asked, did she move in with you? Christiane says, for short periods. In the end, she was in an institution in Germany. During the almost 14 years, oh God, during the almost 14 years that she was ill, I really needed Stanley. It's the ultimate test, and he was spectacular with that. He was endlessly on the phone to get another test and another doctor. We were very practical people. This is just like, oh my God, what a wonderful person. Both of them, both Christiane and Stanley Kubrick. Anya says, you could always interrupt him. He wouldn't want you to interrupt him for any old thing, but if you had a reason, you could go in, especially when we were young. He could just multitask, deal with what you needed and what the firm wanted and what the thing in front of him needed, and then another person came in. He was very good at switching topics without going, what's this? Katerina says, he would say, what do you want? Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, sounds like a normal person. I say that all the time. He would say, what do you want? And you knew that he was paying attention. But you also knew that the moment the door was closed, he was straight back online, dealing with whatever he was dealing with. Christiane says, you'd get the occasional get to the point. Oh my God, I'm loving this. Wow. I guess he did, you know, he had stuff to do. He was a busy guy. Katerina says, our lives as children were certainly like, dinner's ready, no, daddy's on the phone, he'll be down in a minute. But that was because most dinner times he was talking to L.A. He needed to talk to the world. Somebody said that before there was an internet, he was the internet. This is fascinating to me. Like, that's how much time he spent on the phone. Like, so that story Diane Johnson told from the interview that I covered in one of my videos about him calling her at 11 o'clock at night, this explains it. He was like, you know, he was always on the phone. He was always talking to people. And I mean, that's, you know, understandable. He probably had a whole long list of stuff that he needed to do and get checked off and done and taken care of, like to do his movies. So this makes a whole bunch of sense to me anyway. The next question is, Is it true that he slept at odd times to be able to work U.S. office hours? And Christian says, according to his parents, he was always a night owl because he didn't need much sleep. And this warms my heart too because I'm a night owl. And I get criticized for it in my life. Like people are always like, it's 2 a.m., it's 3 a.m. Why don't you go to sleep? And it's like, I don't want to. I'm getting all kinds of great work done at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., even up to 4 a.m. And I do that a lot. I'm not saying it's good for me, but I do it a lot. And it makes me happy. So, don't bother me. I'm not bothering you. You don't have to bother me either. Let me be up at 3 a.m., like working on a video or reading stuff or filing stuff away that I want to use for later or whatever. That's my thing. But this I love it. His parents said he was always a night owl because he didn't need much sleep. He would work an ordinary day and then he could add the Californian office hours. So California had the impression he never slept. Aha, I see. Okay, so if it's midnight in England, then it would be like what? Late afternoon in California. Interesting. So yeah, that's why. Oh, that's genius. Obviously he was a genius, and in the way he dealt with that too. He was up when he needed to be up to communicate with the part of the world that he needed to communicate with to get shit done for his movies or what have you. So and then again that knucklehead Stephen King, talked about how Kubrick called him at whatever. What did he say? What did that fool say? Ungodly hours or something like that. And that's coming from a cokehead. Yeah, his sense of time is really reliable. Oh my God. But anyway, let me keep it going. So California had the impression he never slept. When he was young, he got by on 4 to 5 hours sleep. When he got older, it was a little more than 5, but still less than most people. Huh, interesting. I really need to work on my sleep hygiene too. It's oof, whatever. Anyway, next question. What about his reputation as a recluse, that he didn't leave the house? Anya says, it's exaggerated. Christian says he didn't leave a lot. He did far fewer restaurants and parties than other people. That's true. We gave a lot of parties when we were young, and then when we were old, not so many. But I look at other couples, and it's the same. Since we're lucky to have this big house, we didn't need to go anywhere. Everybody came to him. Those who didn't come, he could phone, and he liked it here. It sounds good to me. Katerina says he had the best of being famous, in that his work was famous, his name was famous, but his face was not. So he could go into St. Albans, go into M&S and Waitrose, or go into bookshops, do what he wanted, and nobody would pay him any mind. Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And then the interviewer asked, he did do that? Katerina says, absolutely, because there are people who think he never went anywhere. Anya says, people think he never left his bedroom. Katerina says, one day he came back from M&S and said, someone recognized me. I didn't know what to do, and they asked me for my autograph. He was very surprised. Oh, that's adorable. He was he didn't know what to do when they asked for his autograph. Wow. That's interesting. And then Anya says, but it didn't happen very often. And Katerina says, no, so that was great. Very famous people can't leave their homes. Christian says, Tom Cruise is literally a prisoner of the Midas touch. He can't go anywhere. And here's a photo of, says here, with producer Jan Harlan, Tom Cruise, and Nicole Kidman, with Stanley here. Oh, wow. Interesting. From 1999. Interesting. And then the interviewer asks, is that true even in the UK? And Katerina says there's a scene in Eyes Wide Shut where Tom had to walk into a hospital. This was in London. Word got around, and within half an hour, the police were having to put up cordons, and people kept ruining the shot by shouting, Tom, I love you. Oh, my God. And Christian says, Stanley watched it from the car and said it was just terrifying. Anya says, presumably Tom Cruise is used to it, but you must feel you're under attack. Wow. Interesting. Christian says, as to being accused of peculiar and demonic household, everyone who comes here from Hollywood says, this is it. I want to live like this instead of traveling everywhere. Stanley had the great luxury of not having to be a performer, and he earned that by the very thing he's also accused of, that he didn't make very many films. He thought very long and hard, and really worried, and looked at billions with a B, of stories, and rejected many, and was quite sad that he couldn't make more. But the reason he didn't make more is that he was so very careful, which earned him the freedom from Warner Brothers. Interesting. It was hard worked for, but they left him alone, and they never interfered because they didn't have to. They knew he wasn't going to be childish about anything. This is kind of interesting. Like, in one of my videos, recent videos, I was talking about, like, you know, why did he even make The Shining into a movie? And I covered that interview where Stanley Kubrick himself said it was sent to him. Interesting. And he rejected many. That's what Christian is saying here. He looked at billions of stories and rejected many, and was quite sad that he couldn't make more. So, yeah, I guess, okay, so The Shining was obviously sent to him. He looked at it, and he chose it for some reason. So he from what his wife is saying, he was very careful about the decisions he made with regard to what he wanted to do as a filmmaker, as an artist. And so when he picked something, he had a damn good reason for choosing it. Interesting. Okay. And now the next question is, I had assumed that the dark myth of Stanley Kubrick would have had a big impact on your lives. Christian says, only now. He was a big umbrella. I'm just sticking my nose into all this for the first time. Katerina says, occasionally I would say, why don't you say something? You can't let people say that. And he'd say, what am I going to do? I start doing that, and then every time somebody says something, I'll have to go out there, and it's so time-consuming. He wasn't going to lower himself to that level. And this is a quote again. No, I don't do that. No, I don't shoot people from my garden. Ay. Can you imagine somebody like telling lies like that about you? And then Christian says, I don't drive 30 miles an hour, and I'm not a nerd. You find yourself saying all these things. Wow. 30 miles an hour. Okay. Well, was there one particular event that cemented the sinister image? And Christian says, it was an accumulation of made-up stories. It's the press cuttings. Everyone who's given a piece to write goes there and repeats the last thing written, like the eternally really stupid photo of Stanley sucking on a cigar. Once he hurt his back and couldn't move, so he drove at 30 miles an hour because he shouldn't have been in... because he should have been in bed. Also, his parents lived in New Jersey, where every window has a bug screen. So he arrives in England and says, aren't there any screens in the windows? That's the first thing I would say, too, because we have screens in Southern California. It's absolutely essential, especially in the summertime. There's flies everywhere. Oh, and they just come into your house. They don't ask. They don't knock. They don't ask permission. They just come right in, and then you got to spend like a good half an hour tracking it down and trying to kill it. Oh my God. Anyway, so he arrives in England and says, aren't there any screens on the windows? The next thing you hear is he sprays his garden with a helicopter. Oh my God. That's just too much. Wow. Yeah, they don't really do screens in Europe. I noticed that. Like, I've traveled a little bit. They don't do screens. And I'm like, why not? Especially in the summertime when there's all those damn mosquitoes. A screen would help. A screen would help keep those little sons of bitches out of the house at nighttime, and then you can't sleep because either they're biting you and it's itchy, or like you hear one close to your ear and that just ruins your whole night. Oh my God, why don't they put bug screens in Europe? What's wrong with you, Europe? Do put the bug screens up, for God's sake. Anyway, let's recount some of the things said about Stanley Kubrick, that he never took vacations. Christian said, "From what?" he asked. He didn't go on an official holiday because he had his own timetable. For him, the thought of sitting somewhere on a beach without all his books and gadgets was a total nightmare. He really didn't understand why people did that. Most people want a vacation because they can't stand what they're doing another week. And she's absolutely right. That's what vacations are for, to get away from your, regularly scheduled life. But if you like what you do for a living, and you wouldn't rather be doing anything but that, like, yeah, why do you need a vacation? Just so you can go somewhere and see something new, or like, really? Or just like that always gets me. People who spend all this money to travel somewhere, it doesn't matter where, for a vacation, whether it's a local, like if you're in the United States, it's a local vacation, and like, you travel, I guess in my case, like, okay, I live near the ocean, and I know that ocean. I've seen plenty of ocean in my life. So, like, okay, I want to go on vacation, so I want to go see the mountains. And what do I do when I get to the area where the mountains are? Like a ski resort? I don't ski. I don't ski. So, or snowboard. So what am I going to do? Just hang out at the chalet and, like, drink cocoa all day long or something? Like, I could do that at home. Seriously. Crazy. So yeah, Christiane is absolute, and Stanley was absolutely right. Katerina says, when I was 19 and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, he told me the luckiest people in the world get to do for a living what they would do as a hobby. That's interesting. He's right. He was totally right. He was totally right. It's true. It is true. What do they say? Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. I very thoroughly and deeply believe that. Anyway, what about holidays when you were children? Christiane says, I took them to Cornwall and Norfolk, though not for very long or very often. And we did, of course, have 1 year in Ireland, which was one big camping trip. I don't know if they're talking about, like, a filming location. Are they talking about Barry Lyndon or somewhere else? I don't know. Anyway, Katerina says, and we went backwards and forwards to America all the time by ship. We went on the Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth, the SS United States, and the SS France. A week of ice cream and lying on the deck. It was glorious. That's Katerina's opinion of being on a boat. I guess if she was a little girl, she probably loved it. Christiane says he enjoyed that, pretending to be living in 1930. Once you reach the time of life when you don't have financial worries so much, which wasn't always the case, then you can decide whichever kind of life you like better. That's why he didn't read those books about him. He had the discipline to know it would bother him. Oh, that's interesting. So, and the interviewer asks, so he didn't read any of the biographies? And Christiane says, no. We didn't help by saying, you ought to read this. This is really nasty. You'll love this one. In the end, he minded about that. Interesting. Oh, this is an interesting one. The interviewer asks them, or says, the IRA threatened to kill him during the filming of Barry Lyndon. I guess so, yeah, they were in Ireland for Barry Lyndon. And Christiane says they did. 2 men arrived with ladders and house painting gear at our house, which was rented, and the woman who cooked for us said, I know these lads. They're not painters. A day later they came to the studio and told Stanley and Ryan O'Neill that they wanted us out of the country immediately. You couldn't see us for dust. I don't think that's paranoia. Then another one, I guess these are claims about Stanley Kubrick. Another one is he downplayed his Jewishness. Katerina says he wasn't religious, but he absolutely did not do that. Okay, that's interesting. So she's kind of confirming that he wasn't religious. That's kind of what catches my eye because of the angle from which I'm studying his movies. I think he deals a lot with religion, even though he obviously, according to his daughter Katerina, he wasn't religious. Okay. Interesting. Another claim is that he was a passive-aggressive manipulator, and that claim, Tankard, is has been circulating a lot as of late. And you know what I'm talking about, Tankard, especially with regard to the Shelley Duvall thing. And everybody said that he was like just abusive towards her and whatever. I'm sick of hearing that. I'm sick of seeing that. I don't believe that for 1 second, that he was abusive towards her. No, just no. I don't see evidence of that. And once again, everybody listening and watching, please go over to Tankard's channel. He's got good videos about that. Check him out. Okay, and let me take a coffee break so I can refuel for the rest of this. This is a long interview, y'all. I read the whole thing all the way through when I found it, but I was reading to myself. I wasn't reading out loud, so I didn't realize how long the darn thing is. But we're gonna get through this. Yes, we are. This is important. This is important study material for those of us who are madly in love with his movies. We must know this. So I'll be back in a second. Hold on. And I'm back. Okay, y'all. So here's the next question. I'll just keep on rolling with this. The interviewer is throwing out like these rumors and assumptions and whatever about Stanley Kubrick. And his family is answering those. So here we go. That one of these things is that he was a passive-aggressive manipulator. Okay. And Anya says he certainly wasn't passive-aggressive, and he was not a manipulator. He was a negotiator of the first order. He argued his point and often won. He knew what he wanted, and he knew how to express it. As a conversational experience, he enjoyed provoking people, and he would deliberately figure out what someone's opinions were, their politics, what was going to rile them, and then say something to get a reaction, to get a discussion going. He was a debater, whether it was a negotiation about something he was trying to get done, or he was trying to persuade us to change our minds. He argued hard. This is interesting. Manipulate has the idea that he was pulling strings, being sneaky. He was not sneaky. He was direct. Okay, this is beautiful. I love this. Christiane says, you can't make films if people hate you. There will always be one or two who like you less, but... And again, she might be referring to, you know who, right? But she might be referring to, like, other people, too. Like, obviously... Stanley Kubrick, he had to deal with all kinds of people in his life. So, and Anya says the point was to get things right. So if he felt someone was in error, he would make his point. But people are often upset by being found out. Interesting. You know what I'm thinking. You probably already know what I'm thinking. Anya continues, he was a challenge. He thought you should know what you were doing, what you thought about something, why you thought it, why you were doing it, that you should have thought it through, That's reasonable, Christiane says, yet he was always the first, especially in artistic terms, to throw up his hands and say, I'm talking crap. He would stop himself in the middle and say, never have I said such rubbish, and immediately redress everything. Oh, he sounds like a lot of fun. Another, I guess, rumor was that he had no sense of humor. Anya said he had the best jokes. Christiane says he had a devastating dry wit, and it's what I now miss the most. He was incredibly funny. Oh. Katerina says if something struck him as very funny, he'd laugh very hard. Christian says, that's why the accusations hurt now. When he was alive, I really didn't care. But now when I hear people say these totally idiotic things, I become angry. And, like, who can blame her? And then another, like, rumor or assumption is he couldn't talk to women. This is from a quote by Adrian Corey in John Baxter's biography. Okay. Christian says, couldn't talk to Adrian Corey, maybe. And Katerina says, and you don't know how she was expecting to be spoken to. You don't know what her agenda was either. Ooh, that's interesting. Anya says, or whether she even said it. Oh, Anya brings up a good point. Like, sometimes people say that people say that somebody said something and maybe they didn't even say it, because that's how, the media works. That's just how it is. Christian says, this is also true. We may be angry with people who never said those things. Interesting. Katerina says, Anya said that the more she reads about Daddy, the more she thinks that Howard Hughes was probably a perfectly normal person. Interesting. And the interviewer asks, which of the books, I guess the books like, Trash Talking, Stanley Kubrick, which of the books is most unreliable? And Christian says, the Baxter and the Raphael. Katerina says, there are weird accuracies in Vincent Lobruto's biography, Stanley Kubrick, like the date I got married and how many children I have, and because those things are true, the reader will then assume everything else is true. Interesting. Christian says, Stanley sued Punch and won and then they lied. When they said that they had won, they were actually thrown out of court. Oh, this is interesting. Katerina says, in May, after Stanley died, and this is really interesting to me. Like, this is their father, and they're calling him Stanley. This is interesting. Y'all, I don't know if you find it interesting. I find it very interesting. I don't know what's going on, but it's interesting. Anyway, Katerina says, in May, after Stanley died, Punch wrote that he went out into the garden and shot some picnickers, and then gave the picnickers loads of money that he just happened to have around his person, so they wouldn't say anything. It must be said that no other newspaper anywhere picked it up. Even they thought it was too much. Anya says, not only is it more painful for us now, because he's not here to say don't worry about it, but he was starting to worry about it, and minding the maliciousness and inaccuracy, which made me, when she says this, Anya says this, that, like, at this point in his life, I guess shortly before he passed on, like, all this, I'll just say it, all this bullshit that was being said about him, like, it was starting to bother him. And, I mean, I don't know what you guys think. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. But to me, that says something. To me, that says something like there seems to have been, according to what I'm reading here, and again, don't forget this was published like 6 months after his death in 1999. There seems to have been, at that, or shortly before his death, there was like this smear campaign against, directed toward Stanley Kubrick. Like, why? Why were they going after him like that? That, to me, that makes my spidey sense, like, all kinds of suspicious. I'm not going to say, like, what I think, because I don't know. I don't know what I think at this point, but that's very, very, what's the word? Peculiar. It's very curious. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you think about that. Anyway. The maliciousness and the inaccuracy. So they're lying, and their lies are motivated by just malice, horribleness. I don't know. So says here, you promised to reveal the truth on your website. And Christiane says, shortly after the funeral, a few things happened that made me think I ought to have a website so I could immediately write back. But then Warner's and Rick Sennett said, "Be careful, you'll reap the whirlwind if you do that." And I said, "I haven't said anything yet, but I will." I would have been very stupid to blurt out any and every indignation I felt, and they quite correctly warned me not to do it. So I've been telling nice stories about Stanley, which is the only way to counter the allegations. Also, allegations. Yeah, smear campaign. Smear campaign. Also, I don't want to join the mudslingers. Stanley was amazingly tolerant in taking the most extraordinary abuse. It takes strength to do that. A lot of people who have said outrageous things have hurt themselves more than Stanley. Ooh, yeah. Like in the case that I'm studying, Stephen King, like the more he talks, the crazier he sounds. And he says all these ridiculous things that simply cannot be confirmed because the target is no longer on this plane of existence. Okay. And even when Stanley Kubrick was alive, he didn't say anything. He didn't respond. So, like, he just let Stephen King just run his gums, you know. Stanley knew what he was doing. I mean, obviously, according to his daughters and his wife, it was starting to bother him near the end of his life, maybe because it was picking up steam. Maybe, I mean, there's conspiracy theories, yes, there is. And near the end of his life, he was working on Eyes Wide Shut. Arguably, his, like, most controversial film, where some people say, and I haven't watched it yet, or not all the way through, and some people say he's exposing the living shit out of what did I say in this video over here from yesterday? I think that his mission, I think Stanley Kubrick's mission was to show us, like, how the people at the controls, the elites, like, how they do that, and to teach us how to avoid their negative influence. I think that's part of what he was trying to teach us, trying to teach mankind through his movies. And to me, I'm thinking maybe, like, the powers that be, the elites, the people at the controls, the whatever, knew. And maybe that's why the smear campaigns were picking up steam at the time. I don't know. Y'all tell me. What say you? Tell me in the comments. Oh, and Anno Domini, he sent me the most amazing video game stuff. Oh, Anno, if you're listening, thank you so much. I didn't express, like, how much I appreciate it in the DM, but oh my goodness, thank you so much. He finds the best stuff sometimes. And I mean, I'm not going to share it because it's not mine to share, but Anno, thank you so much. Like, you gave me so much to think about. So much to think about. I'm going to watch those things again, and, like, I really have to kind of, like, meditate about that. But thank you so much. Anyway, so that's Christiane. She says here, and what Anno sent me, sorry, I'm all over the place. When Anno sent me, it was about, like, what I was talking about in the FMJ overview video, about the elites and, like, who's really at the controls and, like, what's really going on behind the scenes and why, like, potentially why. It's a fictional thing, like a video game thing, but it's extremely thought-provoking. So once again, thank you, Anno. And Christiane here, she says, a lot of the people who have said outrageous things have hurt themselves more than Stanley. I must be dyslexic. I don't know what's going on with me. But yeah. So she makes a very good point, right? These people that were saying whatever they were saying were doing it for all the wrong reasons, and all that shit comes back to you. Okay? If you're trying to hurt somebody by talking shit about them, that will come back to you. It's called karma. Okay, and I know that like real karma, like, doesn't really work like that, but you all know what I mean. Okay, when you set out to, for no good reason, hurt people who haven't hurt you really, no, like, that is going to come back to you. It always does. It always does. She's right. Stanley was right. Um. Anyway, moving on. Another question here. The interviewer says, "Is it worse being on the doorstep of the UK press?" Apparently, the UK press is just awful. They're just terrible. They make, like, TMZ and Perez Hilton and things like that look like child's play. They just go right for your throat in the UK press. My goodness. Christian says, finally, he thought so, because in America, France, Italy, and all over Europe, he was treated with much more respect. It's only in England that there's this envious, strange joy in knocking him off his pedestal, even if he himself never climbed onto one. Because A Clockwork Orange played with the background of England, they blamed every crime in history on Stanley's film. There was a very sloppy conclusion. I'm sorry, no. That was a very sloppy conclusion. He felt very hurt and misunderstood. That only happened here, nowhere else. Christiane, I mean, she's obviously talking from her own, what she witnessed with her husband and all of that. But I think, like, there is a smear campaign going on that lasts to this day regarding Stanley Kubrick and his movies, because he was trying to do a very good thing. He was trying to do, anybody who's trying to do something good, they try to get him, and I think that's what was and still is going on with Stanley Kubrick, and people saying ridiculous, mean things about him that weren't true. Whether it's the man with the eyebrows who meet, watch my video, or this Raphael person, or now freaking Malcolm McDowell. Like, who would have thunk that he was talking shit? Like, really, Malcolm. I just wonder, like, now that I'm talking about it, I just wonder, like, what Stanley Kubrick thought of Malcolm McDowell when he was in Caligula. Ay. He must have thought that was just the most ridiculous shit in the world. Ooh, whatever. But what's his face? The pornographer who did the Caligula movie. Like, he had some good actors in that movie. He had Malcolm McDowell. He had what's her face? Helen, is it Helen Mirren? What's the other one? Was it Peter O'Toole? Is it Peter O'Toole? But anyway, he had some good actors in that movie, and people were like, I read the stuff about that movie, and people were like, how did he get these, like, first class quality actors to do this smutty movie? And I think that the guy who made the movie, what he proved by doing that was that, like, none of these people are above doing whatever for the right amount of money. They're all a bunch of hoes. So, anyway, that's just my aside. That's nothing to do with this article that I'm reading. But anyway, Anya answers with regard to the UK press question. She says he never answered back. After a while, it became obvious you could just say about... Oh, what is this? After a while, it became obvious you could say just about anything, and he wasn't going to retaliate. That's a smart move, really. Like, why add more to what was going on? And then the interviewer asks, so he wasn't litigious? Anya said, only when absolutely forced. They saw Clockwork Orange and they didn't get the point, so there was no point in saying anything. Christian says he thought he had explained what he meant thoroughly in the film, and that's what I've said too. Like, people ask artists, like, what does your art mean? Whether it's a painter or a sculptor or a photographer or a filmmaker or whatever. Like, oh, what does your art mean? What's going on, and what do you think about such and such? And it's like, they already told you what they think. They put it in the art. The art is their answer. The art is their statement. Okay, look at the art. Look at the painting. Look at the movie. Do that, and then you might find some answers. Because the artist already said what they had to say by making the art. Anyway, Anya says, I don't believe the general public didn't understand A Clockwork Orange, but there was a concentrated group of journalists who spotted a way to spin a story. Instead of thugs beat up old lady, it was clockwork thugs beats up old lady. Thug was going to beat up old lady anyway, and you're going to report it anyway. But now you get to call him a clockwork thug. Interesting. I didn't know. I did not know about this clockwork stuff. Another question is, did he try to use his image for his own purposes? After all, the making of cinema is about the making of myth. Supposedly you're saddled with this image, and there's a way you can turn it around for your own ends. And Christian says he wished. Oh gosh. Katerina says he certainly knew that if he wanted to call the head of a company on the other side of the world, once they had established it was really him, then of course his name would get him through to talk to the boss. Anya said, but that's a function of fame, not mythology. One of the useful tools of his success was that people wanted to help him. I'm sure Steven Spielberg gets anyone he wants on the phone. I bet he does. You know, why is this guy even asking this question? You know, like, what is the point of that? Why they're asking him basically, did he take advantage of his own fame? And Christian is basically answering, yeah, he wished. I guess, like, there's something about this that you and me and the general public just can't understand because we haven't seen it firsthand. So, whatever. And Anya says, I'm sure Steven Spielberg gets anyone he wants on the phone. Interesting. Really interesting. Katerina says, he loved the latest information technology. He was a big gadget fan. We were always playing with the latest gadgets. We'd sometimes get them for Christmas. All of us get the same thing, and we'd say, gee, Dad, what do I do with this? So he loved being able to call people and say, what's the latest? What's the best? What's the next thing coming through? What do you visualize happening in 10 years' time? He knew an extraordinary amount of people, and when we were children, we had writers and scientists and actors and zoologists visiting Stanley, so we were exposed to all these interesting people. The interviewer says, your problem now is how to adjust the myth before it sets in concrete. And Anya says, possibly we're not going to be able to adjust it all that much. Christian says, it's extremely difficult for us to get rid of it, for the same reason that wives can't be witnesses. They're considered to be prejudiced. Anya says, but we can Anya says, but we can reinterpret certain things. It's a kind of sloppiness to say that someone who was a perfectionist, which he certainly was also an obsessive. There's a world of difference between those two. Obsessive is a medical condition. Christian says, I mean, you don't want a casual brain surgeon, do you? She makes very good points. Christian makes really good points. You know, the amount of detail that is involved in his movies, like all of them, but especially the ones that we seem to talk about the most, at least over here in my little corner. The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut. I'm gonna get to the other ones. I sure will. But, you know, that level of detail, it's not obsession. It's like, it is perfectionism, though, because he's trying to do something. Like I said, he is trying to accomplish a lot in his movies. And I think he did. I definitely think he did. I was just talking to Tankard tonight. Well, not tonight, but I guess yesterday at this point, about, I told Tankard. Okay, I tell Tankard everything about my theory about the Colorado Lounge and whatever. And if I'm right, and Tankard knows what I said, expect it to drop within the next, in pieces. First I got to do part 16, then I got to do my Colorado Lounge video, and maybe my 42 video, I'm not sure. But if I'm right about my theory and what have you, it might unlock something. I don't know. And, I ran it by Tankard, and Tankard is working on his own stuff. And, this is the work of a perfectionist who, if I'm right about the level of detail, the thing that I observed, the thing that I don't believe anybody else has yet seen in specifically in The Shining, that would possibly help to unlock the mystery that we're all trying to solve about that movie. And I won't say it here. I've only told Tankard. Tankard promised me he would keep it to himself. So, oh God, but Stanley, he paid so much attention to detail. There is something that we have all up until recently, that I missed too, that I'm going to tell you about in this, I guess, upcoming week or so. Stay tuned. And Lord, give me the energy and the strength to get through this coming week, and have the time to do my videos. So, whatever's. You'll see it when you see it. But he obsessive. I don't think he was obsessive either. He just wanted everything to be absolutely perfect because he was trying to accomplish something. He was trying to do something. And Christiane says, I mean, you don't want a casual brain surgeon, do you? No, you don't. You want your doctor to be the best and the most perfectionist person ever. Anya says, there are certain themes, his being a recluse, being an obsessive, that are journalistic exaggerations of his characteristics. Recluse is a word that gets thrown at him in practically every article, and as far as I can work out, recluse must be defined as someone who doesn't talk to journalists. He didn't speak to journalists, but he spoke to everyone else. And those who knew him well and liked him and respected his wishes didn't speak to the press about him. Ooh. So the stories that exist come from people who are in some way disaffected or suffering from a lack of judgment. We figure, let's get ourselves into the clippings file. For all the fact that people will think, they would say that, wouldn't they? Oh, for all the fact that people will think, they would say that, wouldn't they? At least it will be there. And we do have the advantage that we did know him rather well. If we say nothing, then our silence will be seen as confirmation. Okay, so you understand what she's saying here. Like, some of these, I'll just say it, some of these assholes who talk crazy shit about Stanley, they're doing it to prop themselves up in the press, right? Like, the one, the number one turdlinger, Stephen King. That man is just, I like him less and less every day. Anyway, Katerina says, or that we don't care. Okay. Did the mythology get worse with the internet? Christiane says, worse and better. Now, this is back in 1999, and they're talking about the internet like they don't know what's coming in 1999. Okay, so let me just go ahead and read this. Christiane says, worse and better. There are all of people who said nice things on the internet, but did you know that Stanley had an imitator who pretended to be him? Oh my. I think I know is it that guy that did that ridiculous video that was making the rounds? Oh my goodness. And then they ask, how did he feel about that? And Christiane says, very unhappy, because he did get letters from people who said, you promised my son a part in a film, and this guy, Mr. Conway, who's now dead, was, ooh. Oh, you can see what it says there. Ooh. Oh, Lord. Mr. Conway, who's now dead, was seducing little boys with the promise of a part. Nobody likes to get a letter saying, you buggered my son for a part. Ooh, Lord. That was very unpleasant. They did a television program about him. It was quite nauseating. That was one of the prices of your name being famous, when your face isn't known. Something that otherwise seemed such an advantage. Oh, my God. It got that bad. I can't. Ay. That is just demonic. Demonic. Can you? Ay. Just terrible. Just terrible. Um, I'll just keep it moving. Um, the interviewer asks, did he always get what he wanted? Christian says he got what he wanted because people respected him and because they were allowed to work in a certain way. Actors like to be given time on a film. It's the one thing you never get, and because he had a small crew, it cost relatively little per day for shooting. It seems very strange to do this huge preparation to hire very expensive people, and then to say when it comes to the shooting, oh well, I'll do it as quickly as possible. Interesting. The next question is, how did he get the upper hand with the Hollywood studios? Christian says because he was responsible. The studio knew he wasn't going to waste their money. In fact, they sometimes smiled at how careful he was. That's interesting. Then the next question is, again, bear in mind this is from 1999. It says, what about re-releasing A Clockwork Orange? And Christian says, it's up to Warner Brothers. We don't have any say in that. Anya says, it's not exactly high on the list of things to worry about right now. I would say we haven't thought about it. Interesting. Now, this kind of goes with what I made a video about last night, watching the Full Metal Jacket video. The question is, why do you think he was so interested in war as a subject? Okay. Christian says, Stanley was very interested in history. He was a Boys' Magazine person. He loved knowing in enormous detail about military things, and I find the news very boring without his comment on everything. Oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun to me. Anyway, she continues, this is true of more than just war stories. He would love to have made a film about Napoleon. I really want to do a video about this. I really do. That would just, I would love that. But we'll see. He wanted to make a film about Nazi Germany. He loved to see any dumb film with a fight between airplanes. On one of his last evenings, there was one of these on television. He didn't want the plot. He just wanted to see if there was a good fight between planes. Oh, he sounds like a little boy. That's too cute. Anyway, Anya says, I feel almost embarrassed to say it, but war brings situations that expose the essence of someone's personality, what the driving forces are. Interesting. Interesting. So we really need to keep an eye on that Joker character in Full Metal Jacket. We really do. We really do. And in light of what Anya says here, war brings situations that expose the essence of someone's personality. Like when I do Full Metal Jacket, or when any of us, when we watch Full Metal Jacket, we need to keep that in mind while we're watching it. War brings situations that expose the essence of someone's personality, what the driving forces are. Interesting. Christian says he would cringe if he could hear us talking about this. He considered us unsuitable because we knew so little about it. While my opinions were sensible, and I was of course boringly correct as to the moral end of war, and he agreed with me, it was still no fun talking to me about it. Oh. Anya says he liked talking war and politics with my husband, provoking Jonathan as a dinner table sport. Oh, wow. That sounds interesting. And there's a scene from Eyes Wide Shut. Oh, look at this. I don't know where they are, but these are the same like glowing balls that you see on the tables in the gold room in The Shining. I'm just saying. Okay, anyway. Here's another question. Christian, in Time magazine, you are quoted as being allergic to psychological conversations. What? Oh, dear God. Anyway, Christian says, clearly I've talked too much. What I mean is that when Stanley first read Dream Story, I guess that's the story that Eyes Wide Shut is based on, When Stanley first read Dream Story, I was familiar with Schnitzler's plays. There was in the 50s a reaction in Europe against the American preoccupation with psychoanalysis. I shared this reaction, and when I came to America, I was astonished that so many people were in analysis and spoke so freely about things that Europeans crossed their legs about. Interesting. I met a great many Americans then, and I thought that this glorious, guilt-free, self-loving new person who would walk out of the analyst's office could have done with a bit more guilt. Okay. I thought, use your conscience to good purpose. Don't whine over everything. So, with this very old-fashioned attitude, I said, I don't want to read Schnitzler. That's moisture-seeking stuff. Forget it. And she continues, so at the time we talked about this book, Stanley was very interested, and I didn't want him to be. Christian, why you do that? Oh, okay. Then Terry Southern gave him A Clockwork Orange, and I read it, and I said, forget Schnitzler. Read this. He jumped to that one immediately, and Schnitzler was forgotten for a while, but he kept coming back to it. Oh, so Eyes Wide Shut. He was thinking about Eyes Wide Shut, like when he was making A Clockwork Orange. This is tea. This is some good tea. Anyway, by the time he was an old man, he was in a far better position to make a film about the ultimate topic. She doesn't say what that is. Did you hear me when I read this? By the time he was an old man, he was in a far better position to make a film about the ultimate topic. What's the ultimate topic, Christian? Please tell us. I guess we're not. She's not going to tell us, but I mean, I have an idea. I have an idea with regard to Eyes Wide Shut. What the ultimate topic is, I'm not going to say it right now. I got to think about it myself a little bit before, I get into it in the future. But the ultimate topic, eh? Interesting choice of words. Interesting choice of words. Anyway, it's good that it took so long. It was wrong of me to discourage anyone in artistic matters, but we were married, and you do say these things. I just went with the fashion in thinking Schnitzler was dull Viennese stuff. When she says Viennese, is she talking about like Freud? It wasn't Freud from Vienna. Dr. Luke. Calling Dr. Luke. Wasn't Freud and like Jung too? Weren't they both from Austria? Let me know. But in the nature of this story is contained all that goes on between men and women. So if I didn't like it, why didn't I like it? Oh, so she's kind of psychoanalyzing herself. Okay. It became a joke when I said, now I don't mind. Why don't you mind now? I'm very sad I didn't see the finished film before he died, because he was really looking forward to showing it to me. Wow. Okay. Then the interviewer asked, it was finished then. Christian says, absolutely finished. There was a piece of music which he had chosen, and we had talked a great deal about what music it was going to be, and I said, I want to see it now. And he said, no, let me put the music in so you can see it with, because I want you to tell me whether it should be in there. So it was a question of timing, and then he died. Oh my God. Okay. Ugh. This is really interesting. They're talking about like Eyes Wide Shut, which was released the year that he died. And like he was still working on it when he died. He was still picking out some music, according to this. This is interesting to me. It just is. I want to read this article too. Like When You Hold a Mirror to Society, It Rebels. Katharina Kubrick on Eyes Wide Shut. Interesting. But I'll read it another time. Maybe do another video. Who knows? The next question. I think we're nearing the end. Yeah. The next question. How was his health in his last days? Christian says fine, but he was very tired. But anybody would be who had worked such long hours. He was 70, so to see him pale and tired seemed understandable, and he was looking forward to taking a rest. Nobody could have known. The heart attack was so massive, nobody could have done anything. Oh my God. Do you think he had any idea that this might be his last movie? Christian says no, quite the opposite. Ooh, interesting. Katerina says he was looking forward to doing AI. He was very excited about it. There was a lot of stuff already finished and ready to go. Christian says he had also become really interested in all the new computer stuff. He had a lot of conversations with Steven Spielberg about what he could do. Okay, I think this is the last question. The biographies describe him as a fatalist. What were his views about death? Christian says, we often talked about what a fatalist is, since you can't escape being one. Oh, that's cute. He didn't want to die at all, though he wasn't any more afraid than anyone else. But he wasn't religious. Like most of us, he would have liked to believe in something. He thought about it a lot. He was very careless with his health, though. As a doctor's son, he assumed that he knew about medicine, and I often disagreed with his medical ideas. He was afraid of doctors. That comes from being a doctor's son. He dosed himself, and he never really rested when he should have done. He wasn't feeling ill, just tired. He wasn't feeling ill, just very tired. Many heart attack victims are just like that. Such people don't think, I'm pushing myself. It comes naturally with that character. He was very much an optimist. He always thought a job that took 2 days could be done in 2 hours, if he only put his mind to it. He would start the longest and the most difficult jobs with this optimism and say, oh, it won't take long. He never learned the lesson that it does. Oh my goodness. Okay. I am happy. That I found this and that I brought it to you here. I don't care how long it takes. Okay. There's down at the bottom here, there's highlighted films. Barry Lyndon, Shining. In 1960, One-Eyed Jacks. Oh, I'm going to have to take a look at that one. I really am. I really am. I really am. But you guys, I might do more of these. I might find some good interviews with people who loved him and cared about him, his family. Okay, and read those to you. Just so you can, because there's so much bullshit going on, and so many people are say so many ridiculous things about this man. And again, he's not around. He cannot counter any of the nonsense that people say about him, especially in the case of the Dr. Phil debacle, fiasco, whatever, and Stephen King running his gums and saying weird, mean, malicious shit. Very conveniently, Stephen King's target is not around to defend himself. I mean, when Stanley was alive, he obviously didn't say anything to, clap back at people like Stephen King. He probably made the right choice. He was probably very wise as far as that's concerned. And he said, you know what? Let him talk. Let him talk. He's an idiot. Let him talk. But I'm just so happy I found this, because it does give us a little bit of insight. It does give us a little bit of insight. Like, he was crazy about, I didn't know he just loved watching airplane fights. I had no idea. But obviously he did. So, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. I thought this was a great interview, and it gave me like some stuff to think about, So tell me what you think. Go through it. Let me know what you think. Can't wait to read the comments, if there are any. There might not be any. I don't know. Tankard, I'm especially interested in what you think, because like we've been having our little conversations and what have you, or DM idea exchanges. So yeah, go get down in those comments. Again, I'll reiterate the church announcements. Returning viewers, thank you for returning. New viewers, thank you for being new. And subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing. Please, all of you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share my videos. And I think that's about it. I've taken up more than enough of your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Story time, bedtime, story time, or whenever you're listening to this. I know some of you like listen to my stuff in the morning with your coffee. And that just tickles me. I think that's great. But until next time, you all. Until the next time when I find yet another reason to talk at you in one of these crazy videos of mine, I will go ahead and bid you bye-bye. So, bye-bye, everybody.